Hey, what's up guys, it's Nick2. I've been fortunate enough to be playing an early version of the Vessel of Hatred for the last week or so. Big thanks to Blizzard for that. And I've been playing the ever-living crap out of the Spiritborn. So today I wanted to make a quick video just going over some tech or just some like generally useful information that you guys can employ on your Spiritborn to drastically increase your damage. Go over a lot of the things that I have learned. Granted, I've only been playing for about a week, so I don't know absolutely everything about the class, and there's some things on the review build that made it a little bit cumbersome to test a whole bunch of stuff, but generally a lot of stuff I'm going to go over is going to make you just do ridiculous amounts of damage, and it's kind of stuff that I all siphoned into one build to kind of take advantage of all of it at the same time. So I will have a video on the build that I ended up creating, which you'll see on screen here. If you're interested in that, feel free to check that out. I'm also going to have a leveling build for Spiritborn and just a crazy amount of more Spiritborn content, so feel free to subscribe, like the video, etc. if you end up finding it helpful and if you want to see more content like this. Definitely make sure to check out the other Spiritborn videos linked down in the description, leveling builds, endgame build, etc. But for this video, I'm just going to go over how you guys can do some big damn, just some stuff that's really good on this class and just some really helpful tidbits of information that I learned while playing. I quickly want to mention I'm going to be streaming a ton over on Twitch, so feel free to come and drop a follow. I would greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or you just want to hang out, come follow me over on Twitch. They're doing some Twitch drops, which is pretty nice. So if you want to get some free cosmetics, just link your account. And then there's also a support a streamer thing going on. So if you gift 2 subs, if you feel so inclined, you can get this mount. And then if you get 4 subs, you get armor for the mount. So that would be greatly appreciated if you want to come swing by. Help support me, helps a ton, helps enable me to continue to create content for a living. Let's get into all the stuff. I'm going to go in no particular order here and kind of just talk about just some random things that I found to be particularly useful and some things that are going to generically help on almost every single build in the game. First off, I guess we can talk about some skills that are pretty good and why they are good. And again, I'll just go in no particular order here. Ravager. Ravager is very, very good and probably a lock for almost any build that is relying on using a skill to do weapon damage. The reason that Ravager is so insane is that passively it gives you 2 ferocity stacks just by having it on. So you can see right now I'm not even using like the Jaguar skill or whatever, and I just get 2 ferocity stacks just by virtue of having this on my bar. So that's just 10% attack speed, which is pretty decent. But that's not why we really like it. Why we like it is because it has an active ability where when you activate it, it's going to unleash a roar, causing each of your attacks to trigger an additional 40% weapon damage per enemy hit. You can actually level this up and increase the damage, and 40% weapon damage is really good. You can see my Quill Volley is only at 42% weapon damage, so this is insane. And most builds are going to want to fully level this up. The reason I don't have it leveled up is because it doesn't count as a core skill, so for me it's not like synergizing with my unique. But for most builds, leveling this up is going to be just a massive damage increase. Another thing is that any time that it's activated, any kill that you get is going to extend the duration. So you can pretty much have permanent uptime on this while you're mobbing. So you always get that extra damage increase. But one of the best parts about it is that while it's active, your core skill is now instantly dash to targets, and it's just going to increase your resource generation by 30%. The dashing doesn't sound that great, and then you play with it, and oh my god, does it feel nice. So if normally I'm just attacking like this, right? And my attacks just go out and nothing really happens. But if I put Ravager on, now I'm dashing to the target. And when you're running around clearing maps, that feels really, really nice to do. So Ravager is probably one of my favorite skills for the build or for Spiritborn. And it's just like damage increase and mobility at the same time. It's really nice. Another skill that I found to be really good and probably a lock for a lot of builds is going to be Armored Hide. If you don't have access to Resolve, this just gives you Resolve. Passively, if you have it ranked up, it gives you 2 Resolve every 5 seconds. If you don't have it ranked up, it gives you 1 Resolve every 5 seconds. It'll last for 4 seconds. While it's active, it gives you 100% block chance. Block has a lot of synergy with damage and stuff, which we'll talk about, and also just gives you survivability. But it also is going to give you Unstoppable when it's active. You might think 1 Resolve stack every 5 seconds isn't that great. It's probably going to get hit off a lot, and then you're not going to have very many Resolve stacks. The reason that you care about Resolve stacks, first of all, is that it just gives you 20% damage reduction pretty much all the time, or any time that you have a singular stack of Resolve, it's going to give you 20% DR. But this little talent here gives you 1.5% additional DR per stack of Resolve. So you just get a lot of survivability as a result of using it. There's also a glyph, this one here, that increases your damage per each stack of Resolve that you have. So right now I'm getting 20% multi as a result of just having Resolve, and I'm getting 20% damage reduction, which is further increased to 35% via Perseverance. And I'm able to keep this up 100% of the time because every time you get hit, The resolve doesn't instantly just drop if you get hit like 5 times in a row. You don't lose 5 stacks of resolve. There's actually an internal cooldown on it. So as long as you just have some resolve stacks, you're probably going to maintain it. And anytime that you press Armored Hide, you're going to go to max resolve stacks instantly. So if I take Armored Hide off of my bar, my resolve will slowly drop over time. I'll show you guys here. So those dummies are hitting me. I'm only losing 1 stack per second, right? And then if I put Armored Hide on my bar, boom, I just go back to max resolve stacks. Then it takes some time for it to go all the way down again, but I'm also passively generating. So by the time that you're like, the amount that I'm passively generating, in addition to getting hit, plus just pressing the button, I can pretty much max resolve stacks all the time. Resolve also has this pretty good mechanic where anytime that you have, or per resolve stack, you gain block chance. The reason that block is good is because it's going to give you flat damage reduction anytime that you block an attack. But we can also scale this with a legendary, which I'll talk about in a second here. But overall, I just think having this on your bar ends up being pretty good. And with some certain stuff, you can have 100% uptime on this for 100% block and unstoppable, and the additional block damage reduction, which is pretty nice. Last thing I want to mention is that most builds for Spiritborn are going to have some form of ultimate on their bar. And for most intents and purposes, it's going to be the Hunter. The Seeker is pretty good as well. But the reason that you care about having an ultimate is that you get these 2 passives here, Resolution and Supremacy. They just give you a ton of damage. So you get 30% increased damage to elites after you press an ultimate skill. And then you get Supremacy, which is another 30% damage if you get enough kills. Or just anytime the skill ends, you get 5 stacks of it, which is 15% increased damage. So just by having an ultimate on your bar, a lot of the time you'll have a 60% damage increase. And it's very easy to reduce the cooldown of your ultimate to where you can just spam it a lot. While leveling, I would recommend the Seeker, and you can actually temper on charges of the Seeker, so you could have like 10 charges of it, so you can just spam the ult back to back, not only to do a lot of damage, but to maintain 100% uptime on these buffs. Later on, you'll end up getting a lot of cooldown reduction so that you can use the Hunter. The Hunter is really good because it overfills your ferocity, so by default your ferocity has a cap of 5 stacks, and then you can increase the cap of it by using an aspect such as Duelist Sovereign Greaves, where you have plus 5 stacks of ferocity, so then that'll get you to 10. And then if you pair that with the Hunter here, that'll give you an additional 4. And pressing the Hunter is just going to get you to max stacks. So right now I'm all the way up to 13 stacks of ferocity just as a result of simply just pressing the Hunter. It's also going to give you 100% increased damage to injured enemies after pressing it. So it's just a very good damage buff in addition to all the other buffs that you're getting. Now let's get into some of the really good damage stuff. I probably put the little crit damage thing on the thumbnail here. That's 12,000% crit damage. You could probably get significantly more than that. Let's talk about how you can reach that. So there's this aspect called Redirected Force where it is a little confusing to entirely interpret, so I'll explain how it works. You gain increased crit damage equal to, for the two-handed variant, 116% of your block chance. And then if you block, it doubles this bonus. The increased crit damage here isn't a multiplicative crit damage. It's not like you do 116% increased crit damage. It's going to multiply your additive crit damage by your percent block chance. And this percent block chance can go above 100%, but just for the sake of argument, or just to explain it, if you have 100% block chance and then you put this on, it will simply just multiply whatever your crit damage is by 116%. So you can see if I just put this on, because I have more than 100% block chance right now, if I just put this on, oh, I can't because I have runes, whatever. If I put this on, you can see that my crit damage nearly tripled here. This is an additive value, but increasing an additive value by that amount up to the portion of 12,000 is a disgusting amount of damage. Keep in mind that some of this stuff is subject to being nerfed or changed because I am playing an early version of the build, so definitely keep that in mind. One of the interesting things about this is that you would think, oh, well, block chance, because it's chance related, it's going to cap out at 100%, right? It does on tooltip, but it is still going to increase your crit damage value regardless of if you go over 100% or not. And you can easily go over 100% block chance because we have the 10% block chance per resolve stack, so by default I'm at 100%, but you can temper on maximum resolve stacks to the effect of +2 on pants, chest, helm, and amulet, and then you could masterwork this to where you have, +4 resolve stacks per piece. That's another 40% block chance, and then you could also get flat block chance on your weapon. This is a separate tip as well, that quarterstaves seem to just be the best weapon for whatever reason, because all the other ones are at 0.9 for Spiritborn, but the quarterstaves give you block chance, which is good survivability anyways. You just lose a little bit, like who cares about losing some vulnerable damage? Not a big deal. But you're at 1.1 attack speed, and you get 45% block chance, or 40% depending on if it's ancestral or not, right? That is just good, but also For the purposes of using this aspect, that's more block chance. There's also this node to give you 10% block chance, and there's also some Paragon nodes that give you like a few percentage points of block chance, but anytime that you block, it's also going to double this value. So I'll just demonstrate real quick how I was able to get up to that much block. But basically what you want to do is you want to stack as much additive crit damage as humanly possible, like temper crit damage, get crit damage rolls on every single piece of your gear, which I don't even have. There's 2 glyphs that are going to give you a ton of crit damage as well. I'll show you real quick. There's a spirit glyph, so I have this completely maxed out, 300% crit damage. And then I have another one, fitness, 181% crit damage. And then just by me, so these mobs will hit me and it'll make me block. Look, and then if I activate Armored Hide, I forgot about this. Anytime Armored Hide is up, that's another 100% block chance. So you can see that that adds to that. Oh, 14,000. Ooh, I'll get a, that's a nice little new screenshot for the video, actually. More than 12,000. So this is just a disgusting, absolutely disgusting amount of damage. And there's this key passive. I haven't really tested this thoroughly, but there's this key passive that increases your crit. Basically makes your poison crit kind of, but also bleed out instantly. So it's like an expunge. And this passive scales off of your crit damage. And if I'm able to get up to 14,000% crit damage, this passive can end up getting a 3,700% damage increase, which is going to be higher once you have like perfect gear and like, you know, crit damage tempers on your gear, etc. In my head, I thought that it would be very good to pair this with Andariel's and Touch of Death, because Touch of Death does its damage over a long period of time, but the weapon damage is 300%. And the poise thing lets you spam the Touch of Death, so in theory, that would be very good together. I tried it, it didn't work very well. Maybe the passive is bugged, but that is just food for thought. But regardless, I've been heavily taking advantage of this in my build. I actually have it on my amulet because I end up using this unique weapon, which I'll talk about in a second here. But the amount of damage that you get from this is absolutely just disgusting. One thing that you might notice or mention is that because Armored Hide gives you 100% block chance, and because that continues to scale up the crit damage, you'd probably want to go out of your way to build into Armored Hide having full uptime. One of the things is that when you upgrade Armored Hide, it actually increases the duration that it is active, which is pretty nice. But as you can see here, I'll just activate my Armored Hide and then I'll attack. You can see that right now, I can actually maintain 100% uptime on it. And this is something that you can do with all of your skills, which is really, really, really busted, particularly for the effect of using your ultimate, and also some of these other skills that I have on my bar, which I'll talk about. So, how am I doing that? This key passive, Prodigy's tempo, is insane. So basically, every 3rd consecutive cast of the same core skill, which is my Quill Volley, is going to reduce the cooldown of all my cooldowns by a flat 10%. It seems to be higher than 10%, honestly, in this version of the build. It seems maybe 15%. And then that percent is going to be increased by 2% of each of their skill ranks. So, for example, my Hunter, right now I have 5 skill ranks on it, so that is going to be reduced by 20% every 3rd cast. So if I just have a lot of attack speed, every 3rd cast is going to reduce it by 20%, so I'm instantly reducing the cooldown. Another portion of this, though, is that every 3rd cast of the same basic skill is going to increase all of your skills that are purchased. It's going to increase their ranks by 2. Quill Volley isn't a basic skill, but I'm using this unique, which I'll talk about in a second, which is really good. That actually makes it both a basic skill and a core skill. Let me put on my Andariel's for just some little bit extra attack speed here, but just look at my ultimate cooldown. If I just sit here, just look at all my cooldowns, actually. If I just sit here and just spam my Quill Volley, you can see that I'm able to get my ult every like 4 or 5 seconds, right? And that is completely insane. What else is really insane is that counterattack, which I have right here. You can see the E here. Counterattack, while it's active, gives you 100% dodge chance. You can just have this up all the time because of the cooldown reduction with Prodigy's tempo. You just press counterattack and you just get 100% dodge chance. And you also get 30% increased crit damage as a result of using it. So that is really good for survivability. 100% dodge is pretty insane, guys. There's also some other synergies with dodge and stuff. Like, for example, this right here. Anytime that you dodge, you gain increased crit chance. So just dodging all the time, going to give you some more crit chance. There's also a lot of other stuff like in Paragon Board, etc. Something else that's really good is Scourge. Normally, like, this is not a poison build, right? But if you spam Scourge, it's going to continuously give you this buff that increases your damage against crowd-controlled enemies. So as you can see at the bottom here, because I can continuously spam Scourge, I can keep this up all the time when I'm mobbing, which is a 50% multi against crowd controlled enemies. And we are constantly crowd controlling enemies, not only because Scourge actually fears and slows enemies, so it's just going to apply it by itself, but also you temper like Lucky a chance to freeze, etc. And there's this really good Paragon node where vulnerable enemies have a chance to get knocked down, and then you deal another 38% increased damage to crowd controlled enemies. So not only is this applying crowd control for us, also gives us 50% multi, and when you press it, it's going to give you 60% of your vigor over 6 seconds, and because we can spam it like that, it's actually going to give you a lot of vigor battery, so that is super, super good as well. If you don't use Prodigy's Tempo, let's talk about some other core passives that are pretty good. So Prodigy's Tempo you don't need if you want to do this cooldown reduction stuff, because there's this unique Jackinth Shell, which is unbelievably insane, and it has a pretty good synergy with Starlight as well, and it's going to give you a similar effect for that cooldown reduction. Basically, it's going to, every second, reduce something's cooldown by 3 seconds. It seems to be a little bit more than that. It's hard to exactly quantify. I haven't like slowed down gameplay, but you can see it's similar to Prodigy's. It's not going to reduce it by a flat amount constantly, but it just makes the cooldown really, really slow on stuff as long as you are spending vigor. So you have to be spending vigor. Well, actually, you don't have to be spending vigor. The cooldown just has, or the spell just has to be on cooldown. But as long as you are spending vigor, it's going to continuously heal you. Otherwise, you're kind of just going to die while you're using this. But one of the benefits of using this is that if you ever have resource problems, you can pair it with Starlight Aspect. And because you are constantly reducing your health, but also healing yourself by just spamming skills, it's going to give you the max value out of Starlight all the time. So I'll remove my crit chance ring, which is also another way to get a ton of vigor, by the way. This gives you just a disgusting amount. Anytime you crit, it's going to regain all the vigor that you just spent. So that is really, really good for that. But as you can see here, if I just spam my abilities, look at my health. My health is permanently up, and so is my resource. My resource is and if I wait a little bit, my health is going to go down. Oh, I need to put a spell on cooldown. My health will go down because I have a spell on cooldown. I think I have like life on hit with my Endarials, which also has quite a good synergy with this. But look at my look at my resources. And I'm spending all of my resource per second because of this unique right here. This unique is really, really good. Basically, it's going to make your core skill also count as a basic skill, and it is free to cast anytime that you are not at maximum vigor. When you are at maximum vigor, your core skill, such as Quill Volley, is now going to count as both a core and a basic skill, and it is going to gain increased crit damage multiplier. It's going to be a guaranteed crit first of all, so you don't have to get crit chance in order to like scale this up. You don't need crit chance on all this gear. You just get guaranteed crit as a result of using this, and that crit is going to do 3% multiplicative crit damage based on how much vigor you have. So if I have 205 vigor, using this is giving me a 600% damage increase, and there's much more vigor that you can get. There's more on the Paragon board, there's Resource Elixir, there's probably some with a seasonal mechanic, and you can get maximum resource greater affix on this weapon, you can get maximum resource greater affix on an amulet. Like, you could get this to where it's a 1000% damage increase by using this aspect, and that is really, really good. Another thing that's cool about it is that, like I said, it makes your Quill Volley count as both a basic and a core skill regardless. So you can take advantage of passives like follow through here for just increased basic skill damage. You could take advantage of the Prodigy's Tempo to give you the additional 2 ranks. You could use aspects like Aspect of the Moonrise for increased damage, or Aspect of Adaptability. I found this to be extremely good, and overall what is giving me a crazy amount of damage is me using this. But because of the extremely expensive vigor cost that is associated with it, you need to use something in order to get that vigor back. For a while, I was using Starlight in addition to Midnight Sun, and doing both of those, you can see my vigor is literally just permanently at full, and every single cast is benefiting from that damage increase as well as the guaranteed crits. Once the build is pretty set up, you could actually swap that Starlight and then use just Ring of the Midnight Sun by itself, and you can see that my vigor is still really nice because I have a lot of vigor generation on my gear, and I'm spamming Scourge, which is giving me some too, but also the ring is just really, really powerful. You end up wanting to use this aspect, which is another thing that is unbelievably broken for damage, and that is Unyielding Hits. Anytime you cast a Gorilla skill, it increases your weapon damage by 30% of your armor. The reason this is really good is that all of your damage in the game, most damage, rather than like thorns or like certain interactions like Endarials or something, most things are going to scale off of your weapon's actual damage. You can see that my weapon is only at 596 right now, but I have 2,400 armor, and I actually normally am playing with this chest, which has armor on it and Disobedience, and then my armor goes up to, I'm in Torment 3 right now, not Torment 4, but my armor goes up to 3,400. If we do 30% of 3,400, because it's only on my ring, it's not even on my amulet. That is 1,020 additional weapon damage. So by using this, I am effectively doubling my damage, or sorry, almost tripling my damage, because I'm gaining a flat 1,000 additional weapon damage to any of my skills just by casting a gorilla skill. And then this means that stacking armor is actually a multiplicative damage increase. So you can get like total percent armor on your amulet, you can get flat armor on literally every piece of gear, and the amount of armor that it gives is pretty insane. Like on boots right here, you can see I get 352 armor, and that flat armor is affected by percentage, right? So the amount of extra armor that I got from just putting on those boots is pretty insane. This is something that you want to use early on. You could use pretty much throughout the entire process on Spiritborn, just going to give you a crazy amount of extra damage. And currently it is nearly giving me triple damage by using just one aspect, which is really good. Another thing that I would like to mention is that early on, until you gain access to certain uniques such as this one, or Starlight Aspect plus Jackin's Shell giving you a lot of vigor generation, there's something that you can do with Vampiric Touch. So Vampiric Touch plus Vital Strikes. Vital Strikes makes it to where anytime an enemy is vulnerable, you deal 45% increased damage to them. And then once you hit them while they're vulnerable, it'll heal you for 2%, it'll generate 5 vigor, and then it will remove said vulnerable effect. Kind of unfortunate because you want to be constantly like reapplying vulnerable, so like a lot of the time most of your attacks aren't going to benefit from this value. But if you pair it with a Cursed Touch, what happens is you apply the curse here, and then anytime that you hit them, it's not actually going to consume the vulnerable effect because they are continuously vulnerable via a Cursed Touch. So every single time that I hit this guy, I'm going to generate 5 vigor back. So as you can see, if I just get, if I get every single mob here to have the curse on them, every time I hit them, I'm healing for 2% and I'm healing for, and I'm regenning 5 vigor. And I don't have any of my other vigor stuff on right now. So I'm just getting 5 vigor as a result of just hitting these guys over and over again, and I'm getting a 45% damage multi, and I'm healing myself. And if you pair that with Starlight Aspect early on while leveling, you'll have pretty much infinite vigor, and then at some point, you want to swap off of this. This key passive right here, currently it is bugged. I don't know if it will be when the game actually goes live, but this is currently bugged. So the increased core stats isn't benefiting me, and that isn't really insane anyways. But Prodigy's tempo actually is just, I mean, insane. Like, you just get so much cooldown reduction out of this, and there's so much that you can do with that cooldown reduction. So I would pretty much always recommend using that over the other ones, because Vital Strikes isn't really that good unless you're using it with a Cursed Touch, which eventually you don't need the vigor generation from that. So you don't want to be doing that once you have a build like fully set up. One quick little thing I want to mention is that this helmet is really good if you happen to get it early on. It is pretty insane. Your skills deal 30% increased damage per spirit type that they have. My Quill Volley has 3 spirit types. The reason that it has 3 spirit types is that according to your secondary spirit hall choice and the first one, it's going to make all of your skills count as those other ones. So this is already what I wanted to do anyways, is use Gorilla as my main one, because that means every time I cast my skill, I'm getting this extra weapon damage. I'm also getting a barrier, which is just really good for survivability. And then I use the Jaguar passive, where it increases my max ferocity by 1, and anytime I attack, I kill an enemy, or I just simply damage a boss, I get another ferocity stack. I don't actually care about that effect anymore, because anytime I use the hunter, I just am at maximum ferocity. But making my Quill Volley count as a Jaguar skill is giving me an extra 30% multi as a result of using this chest. But being able to also make it cast as a Jaguar skill is really good, because I gain access to this passive, being Furnace, where I get 1.5% increased crit damage per stack of ferocity. I'm at 13 stacks of ferocity. So that's an 18% damage increase, or sorry, 19.5% damage increase, in addition to the 90% that I'm getting from using this. Plus it has damage reduction on it and all stats, which isn't all that bad either, so I quite like that. Another thing that I'd recommend when it comes to runes is Druid Petrify is really good. Anytime it activates, it gives you like maximum resource, so that is pretty good. Pair this with Tam, which is just anytime you cast a non-channeled skill, which is my Quill Volley here, which I have really high attack speed on. I'm constantly proccing it, you can see it down here. And it procs pretty regularly for a nice little crit damage multiplier. There's a ton of other cool things going on with the class, but that is the majority of stuff that I wanted to mention here. I really just wanted to go over the crit damage thing, because almost every single Spiritborn build could take advantage of this. Same thing can be said with the Gorilla weapon skill damage. There's just so much extra damage for you. And the block plus resolve stuff giving you damage reduction and block and crit damage all at the same time. It's just really, really strong. So figured I would just mention those things that I found to be particularly helpful for me. If you want a more in-depth version of this build, I will have a link to it down in the description. And I have a leveling build posted as well, so feel free to check that out. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you found the video helpful. If you did, feel free to drop a like, subscribe, and I'll probably make much more videos just like this one once I learn way more stuff about the class. but those are just some things that I thought were particularly good and worth knowing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.